Okay, let's do this one last time, yeah? For real this time. This is it. My name is Miles Morales. I was bitten by a radioactive spider, and for like 2 days, I've been the one and only Spider-Man. I think you know the rest.
Hello and welcome back to A Stark Contrast, where we discuss the differences and similarities from Marvel Comics to their MCU counterparts. And we are your hosts, Geoffrey
and Dai.
Hello, and welcome back.
Hello.
We are back.
Yes, I was going to say we're like super duper fresh off of our first Friday's live recording, which was kind of, I don't know, super exciting.
Incredibly surreal.
Incredibly surreal. Even with these, awesome professionally printed signs, it still feels kind of...
it's weird.
It's weird.
Our face was plastered in places.
And with Bank of America and like KCRWs as sponsors underneath.
Ooh.
Which is so crazy, yeah. Right? But yeah, it was a super surreal moment. Had a fantastic turnout. I was just making faces. I honestly expected 4 people to sit down.
I expected no people. I was ready to talk to a group of chairs.
Yeah, exactly. Same. And then, slowly but surely, even before we even started recording, people started sitting down and occupying the space, and it was awesome. So thanks again to everybody who showed up, and a special thanks to Joel Keyson again for having us. Yeah, it was really, really awesome experience.
So fun. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, so if you haven't yet listened to the episode, which dropped before this one, so number 56, it's short and sweet, but it's pretty much an intersection of how the museum and Marvel actually do intersect and collide in a great way with Spider-Man and some other stuff. So definitely check it out. But yeah, thanks again to our amazing listeners, new and existing, for making that experience so much cooler than we anticipated. And, I don't know, maybe we'll see if we ever do it again sometime.
I had a cousin of mine DM me when, I reposted the pictures.
Uh-huh.
And like she knows about First Fridays and stuff. She was
really?
like, like next time we do a live recording, like let me know.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, we'll see about that.
Next time, I love that. That's presumptuous. I mean, but honestly, I say it like I think you did a fantastic job, Jeff. I know that.
As did you. As did us. I was throwing up in my mouth the whole time, but
But yeah, no, I think we did great, and not bad for a first timer. Let me tell you,
it was fun.
So yeah, coming down from that, I guess we can get into our Marvel related news. So some super duper sad news in the Marvel universe. A pillar of the entire universe itself, creator and legend Jazzy John Romita has passed away. So
I saw that. Yeah, today.
Big effing deal. Like,
man. Big
deal. Like, Steve, what am I saying? I was thinking Steve Rogers for some reason. Oh, actually, no, Steve Ditko. So I was thinking Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, and like, these are these top tier names, right? Gil Kane, he's up there.
He's one of them.
He's very much one of those people. And so it's just a travesty. It's really sad, but he passed away peacefully. So there's that, but he left an incredible legacy. He originally drew for Daredevil, and then he was pulled into Spider-Man reluctantly. Like, he didn't want to leave the book. And he ended up making it like something iconic, like really iconic. Go. Yeah. And so farewell, Sir John Romita. And his son is still in the game, John Romita Jr. He's a very active comic book creator, and actually I was supposed to see him at a show this weekend, and of course he's canceled now.
Oh,
yeah, it's too bad, but the legend lives on and the legacy goes on. So yeah, thoughts and condolences to the Romita family. In lighter news, by the time this episode drops, we'll be days away from the release of Secret Invasion, which officially debuts on Disney Plus June 21st.
Yes.
Did you watch the secret stuff that needed the password and all that?
Yeah, I did. I didn't even know about that until
really?
on Twitter, and I was like, watch the first 5 minutes, and I was like, what? Because my For You is all jumbled up. It's a mix of Marvel and
Yeah.
and
Sports.
and sports
ball.
Call of Duty.
Yeah.
So and then that like kind of, and I was like, oh, let's watch it. So I was like, do I want to watch it? I was like, yeah, I want to watch it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it looks good.
Are we back to the spy like era?
It's very. I think, but because what we know of like of scrolls, it's kind of like, wow, like you really don't know who to trust, and like you don't know what's going to unfold, or who's like the main antagonist.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see the whole series.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I've heard that the first one, it really does take a minute to ease you into the whole catch you up to the universe, so to speak. But by episode 2, it really gets going, and it's full speed ahead from there. So I'm like, okay, that's great, because it's good to know.
I also read from like one of like the like non-spoiler reviews. It's like it's dark. It's the tone is is there, and like the connections to the vast MCU are nice too. Yeah, like it's just like it's not like a big part, but it's it's there.
It's another corner. Yeah. That's cool. So very excited for that. Like you mentioned before the show, the premiere event was just last night, so it was cool to see who came out for that. And I don't know, have you tried to see if you're a scroll yet? Have you tested?
I haven't tried that yet.
I have friends who are like, I keep getting I'm a scroll. Have you tried it? I was like, no, not yet.
I feel like I would be one.
Yeah, I tried once upon a time. There was what was it? What show was it for? It was for one of the X-Men shows. And they had like, are you a mutant? And you had to go through like this whole process. They did like on-site DNA testing.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but I mean like the actual like, whether or not you are a mutant was completely just by chance. And so, I was a mutant. Apparently it was very rare. It was like 1 in like 250 or something. And I was like, oh, and I got special stuff.
There we go.
So maybe, I don't know, probably a scroll though. We'll see. That's how I found out I was like 0.1 Egyptian, by the way. I was like,
it's like an actual legit...
It was an actual DNA. Yeah. So it's floating around there somewhere.
Oh my God.
But anyway, I haven't tried it yet. Maybe we'll try it after this, or we'll put on. Yeah, it's a Snapchat filter. Okay. With those cute little emojis, once again designed by my dear friend Chuck Torrance.
Kills it.
Yeah, he's got it. And then Marvel's Spider-Man 2 dropped that little teaser from the Sony release date stuff.
Thank God.
Yeah,
I've been waiting. Oh, the pre-order's soon.
Yes, and that's what I was about to say. Pre-orders are officially open for the game. It drops October 20th, but you can reserve it as, I believe, today, as this episode drops.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so go out and get it. I mean, we've got some time.
I can't wait to ignore my girlfriend and play that.
I know. I'm telling everybody, I'm like, all right, so if I'm just like... work
I'm
and then
engulfed.
off.
I'm 100%ing that thing.
It's
on top of the DLCs.
Exactly.
No, yeah.
Do you think it's going to be longer or shorter than the first Spider-Man, or somewhere in between? Maybe.
How long was it? I think it's going to be like, I want to say between 3.5 and 4 hour game.
How long was the first one?
I feel like the main storyline. Well, I breezed through. I always. I'm gonna go on a quick tangent. When I play these games, like I'm all about. Yes, let's do the story because I want another story. But then, they're always like, when you finish a mission, they're like, well, I got some time to save the city a bit, so maybe we can do that. And I was like, nah, screw that. Let's go. Like,
I know. And I kept, especially with Miles, I kept doing that. I would do the side quests thinking, oh, that's it. It's cool. I'm done. And then like, here comes J. Jonah Jameson again. And then here comes the podcaster again. And I was like, this doesn't end. Like, it doesn't end. If you just let yourself keep going.
It's endless amount of content.
Endless,
it's kind of insane.
Yeah, it's always like, okay, I can't do this.
Because I'm like, oh, maybe I should level up. And I'm like, no, I think I can do it.
Yeah, exactly. So once again, as I tweeted, on our account, if this show tanks around October 20th, it's because we're both heavily invested in Spider-Man 2. But yeah, can't wait. It's going to be, super fun. And, that said, I don't think there's anything else, right? I feel like there may have been one or two other things.
It's been kind of dark. It's been it's interesting. So I guess, aside, which we also tweeted, all the release dates have been shifted. Yeah.
Which is to be expected. And Daredevil is, like you said in the previous 2 episodes. It's currently on hold because of the strike.
They just went on officially on strike. That and Deadpool, I believe.
Yeah.
Because of the strike?
Yep.
So
it's all domino effect.
Pay your friggin' writers, man.
Yep.
Like every time I go to the office in Hollywood and I pass by the Netflix building, they're up and at 'em at 9 a.m.
Gosh, that's good.
Pick in line.
Yeah, you got to do it, man. Give them what they deserve.
Yes.
So all that said, we are not experts and we don't claim to be. We're just a couple of nerds nerding out. And if you haven't yet seen Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, fair warning, this is going to be full of spoilers.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. So yeah, that's gonna happen. So with that said, let's get into our character origin of another type of spider, of one of many that we could probably cover, to be honest, but one that deserves his own episode not a moment too soon. Miles Morales, aka Spider-Man. So this character, created by Brian Michael Bendis, a name that you have heard many a time on this show, as well as Sarah Pichelli. She's one of our artists under Cadence Comic Art. She's amazing. She's really great. Very cool. First appearance for Miles. So did you see the year? Do you want to guess what year he came out?
I feel like this is an incredibly new character.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go too far deep, but I also don't want to be too modern where it's like, 2014. Like, obviously that's not, no.
What if it was?
I would probably stop recording and leave.
It isn't, but it's there. It's around there.
I want to go 09.
Just a little bit. Speaking of just a little bit. So, Miles Morales first appearance, Ultimate Comics Fallout #4, cover dated August 2011.
Oh.
So here is the cover. And so I do remember, I'm pretty sure I have this issue. And so yeah, it's very shrouded in mystery. You have to remember, this is the Ultimate Universe. So all these characters that you see on the cover, Captain America, Thor, Iron Man, they're all different iterations of the character. And it features a maskless, but you don't see his face, Spider-Man. And so this takes place after the Spider-Man of that universe dies.
That's what I was assuming.
Yeah, so we've chatted a little bit about that Peter Parker, but we'll cover that later on. But yeah, I was gonna have you guess the cover price, but there's no literal cover price on it, so I'm pretty sure it was probably in the vein of $3.99. It's modern.
$3.99.
It's a step up from 25 cents.
I know,
let me tell you.
Goodness, man.
Which, by the way, speaking of John Romita and speaking of cover prices, so I looked up My Amazing Spider-Man #50 just for kicks to see, because you know how people are. They're vultures. They're like, oh, someone passed away. Let's jack up the price. And so that Amazing Spider-Man #50, there's a 7.0 on Shortboxed. Okay? Previously, this book wasn't, I mean, it's worth a lot, but only the upper grading.
Yeah.
7.0, which is only 0.5 higher than mine, is going for 10 grand now.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, oh, so that mine is probably about 6 or 8. Holy smokes. So yeah, that's crazy. And that was also a very, you could buy it with a couple of coins at the time. But yeah, absolutely crazy. And so, speaking of crazy, we're getting into some crazy numbers here, believe it or not, even for a modern book. So, at the time when I was doing this homework on Shortbox, there were no first prints available. Everybody's keeping this book. So that's kind of wild. Okay. Yeah. So there were none available, but I did find a CGC 9.8 facsimile, which is basically a reprint.
Oh, okay.
It's almost a carbon copy, but it's the number, the barcode it shows 111 instead of 011, whatever it is. And a facsimile alone goes for $250.
Good lordy.
So imagine if that's a reproduction, probably made, I don't know, 1 to 5 years after. The original is worth a whole bunch more. And so I did find one of the original first prints on eBay for a CGC 9.0. Someone is asking a whopping $25,000 for this kid's first appearance.
Jeez, man.
So, I mean, like, it's one of those things where if they have the rock and stock of this comic, like, if you have one already, and you kind of want to pay off some bills, now's the time to cash in because he's hotter than ever. And so, that was a pretty crazy listing. I found some realistic ones that seem a little bit more in, like what someone could actually get for it. There was a CGC 9.2 for about $8,000, which seems to make more sense to me. And a 9.0 for about $6,000. But nevertheless, he's still worth a lot of money. So yeah, especially now.
I mean, he's so popular.
Yeah, exactly. And so those are the highest. On the low scale, again, no first prints available on short box, but there was a 9.8 facsimile blank cover variant with a remark. So that's basically a quick, like, little side profile sketch. And signature signed by, I believe it was Mark Bagley and maybe Brian Michael Bendis. They go for about $800 to $1,000 each. And then on eBay, a 9.0 for $525. So, yeah, the median for anything that wasn't graded looked like $500. So if you're looking to own this issue now, be prepared to pay at least $500, which is, if you think about it, it's up there. Yeah, especially for
compared
a character.
to $399.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. And so, I mean, this is a pretty no-brainer, but what was your first exposure to the character?
I'm pretty sure the first time is going to be different than the other answers.
Oh, really?
I think Childish Gambino is the reason why I'm aware of this.
I believe that. A lot of people have said that.
Yeah.
Actually.
I'm pretty sure, like, because he made that joke. I don't know if it was a joke or during a stand-up where he talked about a black Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was the reason, like, Miles Morales was created.
Interesting.
And then it kind of just snowballed from there. Like, he played himself in Community. He dressed up as Spider-Man. He voiced Spider-Man in one of the animated cartoons.
Yeah, he did.
And then he ended up in Homecoming as Miles Davis.
Yeah. No.
Oh, I'm sorry, Aaron Davis.
Aaron Davis, yeah.
And then this is going to be the first spoiler of the pod. He played live action Prowler in Across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
Which probably got the biggest reaction out of me when 100%. I first saw it. I was like, all by myself when I watched it. Yeah. But I was just sitting and I just saw that when they were going through this society.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh! Like
100%.
audibly. And I was like, oh!
Because he was also the first real person, right? That you actually see, or did they show the Peters first?
I think he was the first live action. Yeah. He was. And then it was the timelines and stuff. So.
And he was the first original new, like, live person. Like, the other ones were just revisits. Yes. But he was like a full-fledged, like, he shot a cameo for that scene, which is like mind-blowing.
Like, oh. So I'm pretty sure Childish Gambino is the reason why I am amazing. Aware of
I love that.
Black Spider-Man.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I'm sure that goes for a lot of people who aren't comic book readers, like full-fledged. Like, it's probably all because of Donald Glover.
Yeah.
For me, I'm pretty sure it was this comic. Like, I was in it at the time. Yeah. So I had just come back to the fray of buying comics again because I had taken a long period. And so this was like in the middle of my revisiting all things Spider-Man. And so he was just dropped into the middle of it. And I was like, oh, that's pretty dope. And then, the rest is kind of history. And so, like I said, I might actually have this issue. I don't remember, which is kind of messed up.
Amongst other issues.
Yeah, I have quite a few for sure. And so, that said, I don't have a physical trading card, but I do have a digital card. And so this it'll sound very familiar, more or less. And so it says, Miles Morales was originally bit by a radioactive spider in an alternate timeline, developing unique Spider-Man powers, including invisibility and a venom strike. When the world merges with Earth 616, Miles works and trains directly with Peter Parker as another Spider-Man.
Wow.
So, so there's a few things going on there that we're going to get into more, but right off the bat, it is incredibly similar to the storyline that we're introduced to into the Spider-Verse.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, as well as the continuation into Across the Spider-Verse. So, that said, there is technically no MCU version of this character, so we're going to be doing comparisons clearly with the Sony Spider-Man universe, as seen in animation. So hold on to your butts. So Miles Gonzalo Morales. is his name in the comics. And right off the top, we did get a couple listener comments regarding his origin, and they were like Ariel Tima, for instance, asked, how is he different from the OG Spidey? Isn't the origin the same? And it's like, yes, but no. And so a big thing about Across the Spider-Verse is that canon events are a common denominator with all these spiders. And it is true. It's incredibly true across the board. Everybody loses somebody. It used to be predominantly Uncle Ben. And then they started to go, okay, well, it doesn't have to be an uncle. It can be a mom or a dad or a sister, brother, whatever it is. And it does follow course. And, but from there on and beyond that, they're all very different. Yeah. Especially origins. And you'll hear that with Miles's today. So stick with us as we unravel the story. So again, like, you know, his comic book origins aren't unlike what we've seen on the screen. Like head to toe, it's very much how it is, paper to picture. But you know, just as well, there are quite a few big differences. Like I mentioned, you know, this whole thing occurs in the wake of the death of his Earth's Peter Parker. So the Peter Parker of 1610, not quite like in the movie. In the movie, he was just an adult Spider-Man with blonde hair. Yeah. The Earth 1610 Peter Parker was just, I think he was a year or two older than Miles. So he's still a teenager. Yeah. Very much like fresh off the boat Spider-Man. He was, you know, cute and he had long bangs and that kind of thing. And so this mysterious new Spider-Man pops up, makes an appearance after the death of Peter Parker. You know, of course, people don't know it's Peter Parker. They just know it's Spider-Man. Yes. Aside a select few. But, so this Spider-Man appears. And so everyone's like, what's happening? Who's this? It looks just like Spider-Man because it's a red and blue outfit. He's got some like kneecap, like, what do you call them? Shoulder pads, knee pads and stuff.
And the eyes, right?
The eyes are a bit different. And so he goes head to head with one of Spider-Man's original adversaries who's known as the Kangaroo. And it's funny because, you know, like, I don't think they did it 100% in the first film, but he's like, you know, in the comics, he's like, what kind of name is Kangaroo? And then he gets his butt kicked like a kangaroo style. You know, he's like full-fledged kangaroo. Yeah, look at him. He looks like a Crocodile Dundee from the back. I know. Yeah. So anyway, he goes about his business and all that stuff. And the entire issue, they're constantly like, are you trying to be Spider-Man? Oh man, that uniform is in poor taste. Like the entire thing. And this story is actually, this is a triple story. So there are 3 different stories in this one issue, but they're all about different characters. Got it. So Miles isn't until the very last one. And so it's really just about the origin. And so you don't see until what is practically the last page that, he's not only not Peter Parker. He's not only a kid, but he's a black kid. And it's like, oh snap, there's a new Spider-Man. And so that's the first reveal of Miles Morales in Marvel Comics. Wow. Yeah. So it isn't until a month after this issue that you're actually introduced to who he is, why it's all happening. Yeah. And so this, I definitely have this one. I have 2 of these. I didn't look up the price. I probably should have. But it isn't until a month later we get Ultimate Comics Spider-Man #1, Miles Morales, featuring Brian Michael Bendis and Sarah Kelly, as well as Justin Ponser on colors. And so this is his official new title, his official new suit. And so they kind of do the marvelous, you know, Brian Michael Bendis is very good about, he's an incredible storyteller. Clearly, he's in charge of so many characters, you know. But he tells the story in such a way that is similar as it is not similar to the film. And so in the comics, it begins with Norman Osborn doing as Norman Osborn does. And he's giving a whole recap of, like, if you're not going to read the rest of what happened, he does it for you, clearly. Got it. And so, so he does this whole recap of how the original Spider-Man was bitten by a spider infused with something called the Oz formula, which is basically a goblin formula in the Ultimate Universe. Gosh. Yeah. And so, he's talking to this doctor that works at Oscorp named Dr. Marcus, who he's more or less entrusted to reverse calculate the formula that perfectly concocted both the spider that bit Peter Parker and the powers that came with it. And so it isn't long after, it's quite literally a page after, that Osborn is not only exposed to be doing illegal experiments at Oscorp, but he's also unmasked as the Green Goblin. So he essentially went all these years in the Ultimate Timeline with no one knowing that they were one and the same. But, you know, it's in an expose in the Daily Bugle, and he's found out. And then meanwhile, while all that's happening, on the other side of town, a small kid named Miles Morales is walking down the street in Brooklyn with his parents, and they're going to this school, private school named the Brooklyn Visions Academy.
Yeah, it's pretty spot on.
Yeah, hopeful that he's gonna get one of 3 spots to join the school. So it's a little different there. Like, I guess, did you rewatch it? I haven't rewatched Into the Spider-Verse in a while.
Yeah, I just watched it.
You did, right? Yeah, that's what I thought.
I think it was just...
Yeah.
Well, I think it was just, he transferred over. That was it.
Oh, he transferred over, right. Yeah. And so in the comics, it's quite literally a lottery. And so there's a woman, they go to this auditorium, and there's a woman on stage, and they're rolling this bingo wheel thing full of like...
Oh my God.
Yeah, full of those ping pong balls with numbers.
Yeah.
And so the first number gets drawn. It's some kid, and they're like, yes! And then, you know, Miles is like, the whole time he's like, man, this is a waste of time. Like, this is dumb. And Jefferson's like, oh, we could have been doing something else. And Rio's like, no. Have faith, have hope. And then the second number gets drawn. It's a girl somewhere else. And Miles is like, man, can I just go? This is really embarrassing. And then finally the third number gets dropped. Number 42.
That's funny.
So it's drawn from the bingo wheel, and they call out Miles Morales. And then it was like a double, like you could hear the record scratch off the page, and they're like, wait, what? And it happens.
That's
he gets
crazy.
in. Yeah. And so that's the significance of number 42, because it is quite different from the film version, which we're gonna get into. But
yeah.
So he's the final entrant. He gets into the school. And so, despite a rocky relationship between his parents and, Miles's Uncle Aaron, he still visits Uncle Aaron, very much like in the film. I feel like in the film they have a little bit of a better relationship. Like, they're not like, they're not like completely like, you don't go see him. Like, they don't vehemently tell him not to. I mean, I could be
the
wrong.
Parents don't.
Yeah. They don't forbid him from going to see him.
Kind of just like, he just has a better relationship with him than his parents.
Yeah. In the comics, they're like,
don't go. Oh, okay.
Don't do that. And so anyway, he goes to see him. He goes to tell him the good news. And off the bat, you can tell, even more so than the film, that Uncle Aaron is pretty shady.
Yeah, like you're like, oh, he's a cool uncle, but you're also kind of like,
like this one wears like, kind of like the pimp hat a little bit, and he's always looking skeevy side-eyed. Mm-hmm. And so, but Miles doesn't care. He loves his Uncle Aaron, and so he goes to tell him the good news. And in the middle, like quite literally, he's sitting on the couch, no different than you are. There's a backpack next to him. The spider crawls out of it, boop, bites him on the hand, and the rest is history. So we'll get into all that eventually, but that said, Miles Morales over in the Sony Spider-Man universe, SSMU, Shamik Moore voiced the kid, and he's fantastic because it sounds like him, but it doesn't sound like him because he makes himself sound so much younger, especially in the first film.
I've been listening to the album, the Metro Boomin album, and I just can recite every line that's like, he's like, what was that line? It's like, don't you usually catch a bad, but I always do. Usually.
He's so good. And it's funny because I've only met Shamik once, and this was at the Into the Spider-Verse cast party. And speaking of Spider-Man, I was playing Spider-Man. Like, I think I've mentioned this before, but there was like they had this mini theater where you could just chill, and like it was multi-tiered, but they had it it was like a movie screen size.
Oh my God.
And no one was playing, and I was like, I don't know what else to do. I didn't know what else to do with myself. I was like, well, I wasn't cast and crew, so I'm kind of like, I'm there because I was invited, right? And so I sit down in my fancy shirt, like in the front row, just being like, well, no one's going to come in here. I'm just going to play. Because the game had just come out.
The first Spider-Man PS4 game?
In comes Shamik Moore and his crew. And I was like, oh.
Oh my God.
And they sat behind me.
That's kind of intimidating.
And I was like, this is really, it was horrendously intimidating.
Yeah.
But thankfully I was good enough at the game by that point. That I was like, I got confidence. So I was playing. And so anyway, I met him a little bit later before we were leaving, and he was like actually in front of me getting his car, and he was just like the sweetest guy.
Yeah. Super
duper nice. And like, again, you hear his voice and you just immediately feel like the animation that goes into Miles,
I agree.
And so anyway, we first meet Miles in Into the Spider-Verse, directed by Bob Paraschetti, Peter Ramsey, thanks for letting me hold your Oscar, and Rodney Rotham, with a story screenplay by Phil Lord and Rodney Rothman. And then, of course, Across the Spider-Verse, directed by Joaquin Dos Santos, Kemp Powers, and Justin K. Thompson, written by Phil Lord, Christopher Miller, and Dave Callahan. So so you just watched Into the Spider-Verse again. I can't wait to see it again because I'm going to try and get tickets for that the live orchestral version.
God. Yes.
Yeah. Do you have access to that?
I'm going to try to see if I can buy that.
It's Pantages.
It's Pantages?
Yeah.
Where did I see Hollywood Bowl from? I'm tripping. Pantages.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Pantages.
I will check.
But it's in November, I think.
Yes, that's what I...
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah, but yeah, so how was revisiting the film after you'd seen it? After you've seen Across the Spider-Verse?
I mean, the scale and the scope is obviously... like, bigger.
Yeah.
They do touch up on a lot of things. It was so fun. When I was first watching the movie again, I was like, how did they get to, I was like, wait, they're not part of like Miles' universe, right?
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, then they explain like how it happened. And I was, oh, okay, this all makes sense.
Yeah.
Just a great
collider.
Yeah. I think it's a great, origin story.
Yeah.
Cause if you go watch Into the Spider-Verse and then you watch Across the Spider-Verse, you're like, wow, the growth between Gwen and Miles is so significant.
Yeah.
And the scope is just so much better.
Yeah.
Kingpin is a menace.
It's funny because he says that about other characters. But he's
Spider-Man
so iconic.
is like, ooh, I remember rewatching it and like when the original Spider-Man in Miles' universe was about to die.
The blonde one,
And he was like, yo, don't you want to know what...
Chris Pine?
That's
Chris Pine.
That's Chris Pine?
Yes. He's the one that sang the Jingle Bell songs and all that stuff. That's Chris Pine.
Oh my God.
That's why it was like the running joke when Into the Spider-Verse came out was like, who knew Chris Pine was going to have a #1 holiday song on Spotify?
Crazy.
Yeah.
And then so like, don't you want to know, he tells Fisk, don't you want to know what I saw in there?
Yeah.
And then he was like, wait. And then he's like, and then Spider-Man's like, they're not coming back. And I was like, ooh, damn.
Yeah. Nailed it, right? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The truth hurts, man.
So that was kind of insane. And just the whole scope of that. The bagel. Who
knew the bagel was going to come back?
I wonder if that was like intentional on like the writer's ends of being like, ooh, let's just take this one joke and make him the villain.
I mean, but you have to understand, like, I don't know if you saw that tweet. I retweeted Marino? I'm so sorry. But, like, we've known each other on social for years.
Yeah.
Since before Into the Spider-Verse came out. And I remember he took this picture at New York Comic Con and somebody cosplayed as the bagel guy. And
yes.
Yeah, they had like the thing and the bagel. And he's like, oh, and his like, even his gun was like falling out of his hand and it was like perfect. And so it's like, that joke went so far within the fandom, just because he was so funny, and like you said earlier, like he's got a bagel, he's a little bagel,
he's got a bagel, like, Spider-Man, he's got a bagel.
It's like, all these little tiny jokes that they've threaded into the storyline are so magnificent in every way, but the fact that they took that and legitimately made it into the perfect like villain origin.
Turn into like the scariest villain, actually.
Oh, 100%.
Have
like
you seen
at the end,
that joke on like social media? He's like, man, like the spot music. Like, I was like, oh my God.
It's like, it's actually kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like Boss Logic too, he just did a very recently, like yesterday or the day before, just did like a spot portrait. And it was like pretty fantastic, and it feels super scary and dark. And I was like, ooh, but I did see another tweet or something where it's interesting because even the bagel thing, right? Like it hit the guy on such a specific part of his head.
Yeah.
And then if you look at the spot is where the bagel hit.
That's hilarious.
So we're going to talk more about the spot later, but I think what, I've said many a time when it comes to Into the Spider-Verse that their storytelling and the way that they introduce these characters, like, I know some people are like, oh, they got to do this live action. It's like, well, they don't, because it's so perfectly well done in animation.
Yeah.
Like, you really don't even need to see it in live action. And I almost feel like because they're pulling in the multimedia elements of live action and really threading together this whole Spider-Man universe, they're like ensuring that you're not gonna feel insatiable for a live version counterpart.
Yes.
Like, they're just like, we're gonna take care of all these things for you now so that you don't ask for them later. And so yeah, the way that they've handled the death of Spidey and how Miles becomes Spidey, and then he's meeting the other Spiders all the way through the sequel where he's now meeting the Spot. And you see, like, it's even parallel to how each Spider-Man in live action has ultimately been in the second film, right? Mm-hmm. Their second film, you see that they're like, oh yeah, they're pro. Like, especially with Tom Holland. That's a great example. First he's kind of clunky. Then by the second one, he's like whipping cabs and he's getting food while he's, fighting crime. It's the same thing with Miles. Down to putting the empanada in the microwave. And then, like, the whole discussion of, like, he's like, hey, man, how much do I owe you for the beef patty or whatever?
Why do they call it an ATM machine? The M is machine.
Like, I love that. It's, like, again, perfectly embodies, like, who Spider-Man is,
I agree.
Anyone can wear the mask. And so, I think a really great point about the second film is he's not only he's already grown as Spider-Man, but he still has a long way to go, and that runs parallel to who he is as a person. Like, who is Miles Morales? And that's the genius thing about God, I forgot that comedian's name, but the woman who played the school counselor, right? Like, her whole scene is very much the premise of that film. Like, she's like, I don't know who this kid is. He has to tell his own story. And so they really jump from that point and give us, like, such a meaty, like, 2 more hours after that point. Yeah. Which is, it seemed daunting before we got into it. But once you watch the film, like, I remember saying to a couple of people, I felt it was only slow for a couple of times for me. But other than that, it as you perfectly say, it said what it needed to say. It told the story it needed to tell, and it didn't feel like they over exaggerated or overcompensated for anything. It felt right every bit of the way, and then they leave you hanging and wanting more.
I was so mad.
Which is not.
I was so mad.
I love that text. You were like, "Are you kidding me?" Or whatever you said.
Yeah, I was so mad because I was like, yes,
yeah,
let's save his ass.
The build up was so
Let's
good.
do it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, in my head, I was like, okay, this movie's. I think we're hitting like a 2-hour mark at this point. And I was like, I don't remember the movie being like super long.
Yeah,
and then I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
I was like, I started to realize, I was like, oh no, they're gonna blue ball us.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no. Then the TV continued. Like, what the hell?
Yeah. I know. I thought that they were gonna cut it when Gwen is dismissed and like go home Gwen. Like when they send her home, I thought that's when they were gonna cut it.
Oh really?
I didn't think they were gonna pull it together. And I was like, oh. And then the added value of like, oh, and we get Penny, and we get Peter B. Parker Noir.
We get all the people from the first gang.
Yeah, so I was
that's what I liked. I'm glad that they didn't bring them back.
Yeah,
like for the movie, but they brought them back. Like, oh, this makes sense why they only appear at the end.
Right, and so it really does. Like, they set up all these points of like, okay, what is Miles longing, right? Like, he misses his friends. Okay, cool. And then, okay, Miles is growing up and his mom doesn't want him, like, she doesn't want to lose touch with who he is and her little boy. Yeah. And then they bring it all back together and unify those ideas, which they almost perfectly tie up. And we still have a lot to go, which is like fantastic. Did you want to talk about the Spider Society at all?
We can a little bit.
And there's still, like, I don't know if you're following Chris Anka. So Chris Anka, again, he's the one that drew Star-Lord. So he has been in the game for quite a bit, and he's finally getting his time in the spotlight, which is fantastic because he's worked on this film for 3 years. He quite literally went from doing comics to now he's an art director on this film. You know, it's incredible. And so he kind of almost jokingly, but put a feeler out on Twitter last week and was like, I have so much material I could share. I could probably do one a day. And people were like,
yeah,
okay. And so he was like, okay. So he's been doing it every day. He's been sharing storyboards. He's been sharing character designs.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, so I think he's on Spider Cyborg right now, but he did Gwen the other day or the last 2 or 3 days. He did Miles before that. He did Miguel before that.
I need to look.
So he's going through, Chris Anka, Krisanka. And so he's going through and he just covered like the little, I didn't even notice him until the other day. The tiny little Spider-Man plushes in there.
Yeah. And the popsicle.
Yeah. And the popsicle. Oh, the popsicle is funny because my friend tweeted the funniest tweet and he was like, I can't imagine what the Popsicles Canon event was.
People were saying, what was even Peter parked car.
Peter Parker.
Like, what was his canon event? And they were like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I forget.
Yeah.
But it was just like, a DUI.
Yeah, oh, God, awful. Oh, God, yeah. So I just think it's so.
My
but yeah,
God.
so Chris alone created 150 of the spiders that are in the Spider Society, for the record. So he's got a lot of material he's gonna get through, which is incredible. And so, I can't wait for Gallery Nucleus to do a feature on that, because I feel like they will. They did it for the first film.
Yeah.
They'll probably do it again. So hopefully they'll show a lot of that.
I think my favorite part of that Spider Society, I have 2 favorite moments actually.
Yeah.
3. It's when they're running through the villain part and you see Donald Glover again. And everyone's like, boo! Boo!
Yeah.
The second favorite part is when he meets with Spider Cowboy and he's like, all right, draw on 3. 1. You didn't wait on 3! That was hilarious.
He's so funny.
And the third one was the therapy. And he's like, I was just looking at my uncle. Let me guess. He died.
Yeah. I know. It's so funny. They all think they're unique, but they have the same running joke.
Yeah.
Like, when it's like, hey, I'm Spider-Man. She was like, oh, really? You're Spider-Man? So am I. That was
or he's like, oh, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Catch Spider-Man.
Catch Spider-Man.
You.
Oh my God. I about died on that one because you know it's coming.
Yeah.
You know it's coming. And then they do it and it's the massive thing you've seen at many conventions.
You have to do
exactly. You got to do it. So yeah, I mean, super fantastic. Absolutely love what they've done. And I just feel like it's only going to get crazier from this point. But as far as the episode goes, we can move on. And so we did get a listener comment, simply said, from Krizuno on Instagram, he is my son. That's all I got at the moment. And I agree. He's fantastic. He's everybody's son. You just want to look out for him. He's a great kid. And you can't help but sympathize with Rio a lot. And you're just like, oh, stop making the dumb decisions, kid. No, you can do better. It's okay, kid. Don't worry.
Miles, what are you?
Yeah.
Oh, God, man. No, he's only a kid.
I know. He's just a kid.
You know your shoes are tied. Uh-huh. This is a onesie, so I don't really have to worry about it. I thought I was the only one. You're like me.
I don't want to be.
I don't think you have a choice, kiddo.
So powers and paraphernalia. So this is nothing you've never heard before. So spider physiology, all the things we're familiar with, including but not limited to superhuman strength, speed, stamina, durability, agility, equilibrium, and reflexes, as well as wall crawling, spider sense, electricity generation. So this is the one thing that makes Miles stand out from the rest, is the electricity generation. So he's got a venom blast, which we're familiar with, especially in the second film. Like, it was the shoulder touch from the first movie. Mm-hmm. The second one, he's kind of vamped up a bit because he's got more, and like Hobie told him, use your palms. Yeah. But in the comics, he also has venom beams, a venom punch. I guess he's kind of used that in the film, as well as energy thread generation, lateral repulsion, and bioelectric constructs. So he can do a lot of electricity stuff in the comics.
I feel like we'll see his full power in the third movie.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I'm pretty sure they did it in Spider-Man 1, but you know when you can tether the electricity between the villains? It's like that. So that's the thread. Yeah. So he has that in the comics. That's how it was adapted to the game. Ew. And then last but not least, camouflage and regeneration. Ew. So the regeneration they've not touched on too much yet, but it's something that they don't really like to hone on, as far as you can tell in the films, because they don't want you to feel like he's immortal, because that kind of takes away from the allure that is Peter Parker or Miles Morales. But he does have it in the comics, just a bit. And so these are more or less on par with the film. And he still has he's still learning his potential. And we're only in the second of 3 films so far. Yeah. With God knows how far to go. So, there's quite a bit to go through, and I'm sure we'll see them slowly but surely. That said, it said that people like Miles, whose physiology was affected by the Oz formula in the comics, experienced an immortality side effect. So, but for him, it didn't quite come into fruition. So I wanted to very quickly touch on that because, again, it's kind of one of those things like, oh, well, the whole thing about Peter Parker is that he's human, right? Like he's obviously got spider powers and stuff, but making him immortal kind of almost takes away from the allure of how fragile he can be. Sure, yeah. So in the Ultimates universe, although Peter Parker died, right? They buried the kid. They did the whole thing. Yeah. He's got a gravestone. He came back at the end of the series. And I believe he quite literally crawled out of his grave. My God. So he died, but it took him all that time from when he died to when he resurrected for his regeneration to kick back in. Holy. So his regenerative powers kicked in while he was basically a corpse, reformulated his physiology, and he was able to come back and be like, hey, Miles, don't tell anybody I'm alive. Oh my God. And then he and MJ, he connects with MJ again. They ride off into the sunset. They're like, bye. Well. Yeah, he wanted to live his life. He was done. He was like done with it. So yeah, I don't, they really haven't touched on Miles having that attribute any time recently. And I don't think they'll do it in the films, but who knows? So as far as aesthetic goes, different iterations of the suit do happen like in the film. So like I showed you earlier, Jeff, he comes in with the red spider suit. It's kind of homemade. Not unlike the film where he quite literally buys a costume from Stan Lee. And there's no refund. That's funny. Yeah. And then kind of upgrades himself in the movie by painting black on top of the existing red Spider-Man suit. To which, of course, in the second film, he's officially got something bigger, better, more tight. But in as you can see in our doc, it's pretty similar. There's not much of a difference, straight up from the red webbing and the way that they've articulated the design on his chest, down to the red fingertips and the red soles. I love the black and red suit. Oh, it's so good. So cool. Yeah, I remember like when it first came out and everyone was just kind of like, whoa. Because, every variation of Spider-Man has always been red and blue. Always. Scarlet Spider was red and blue. 2099 was red and blue. And so when Miles came around, everyone was like, whoa, where's the blue? Yeah. Oh, it's black. Oh, snap. And everybody realized. So cool. Yeah. And Jordans. Oh, yeah, the Jordans are a great aspect too that they've pulled in. And so, if you scroll down a little further, he has been introduced to a new suit in the comic books. I have a theory that we might actually see this at some point in the film, but I don't know, maybe, I'm not sure. And it's more of a, I don't know, athletic, almost jogger look. Yeah. It is kind of like almost maroon, but it is red. It's supposed to be red and black as well. And so it's kind of like a spider suit that has a hoodie on top. Yeah. And then he has that thing that people have where it's like it goes over the mouth. Okay. Yeah, and it's a slick new design. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we might see at the very end of the final piece of this trilogy, but I don't know. Because where does he go, right? Like, everybody gets a glow up. Everybody. So, whether or not he'll have one in the next film, I guess we'll see.
Okay. Can you let go, please? Calm
let
down.
go.
It's fine. Just... Miles, let go.
Working on it. It's just puberty.
I don't think you know what puberty is. Just relax.
Okay, I have a plan. I'm going to pull really hard.
That's a terrible plan.
One.
Don't do this. 3.
So yeah, from there, friends, family, and affiliations. And so right off the top of this section, Gunky Lee, let me remind you all.
You got buff as hell, though.
Gunky, I know. Gunky is not based on Ned Leeds from the MCU. Ned is based on Gunky. So I'm sure people make that thing. They're like, oh, he's like the kid in Homecoming and Far From... No. Gunky was first.
True.
He was exactly the same.
True.
And again, I think that's why they did make him buff and like trim him up, because they needed to pull him a little bit away from the cinematic version. Variant, if you will. And so, that said, he is very much like Ned Leeds that we know from MCU. Mm-hmm. In the comics, he was, or it still is, quite a little bit of a more very doughy, kind-hearted, the guy in the chair type. Right down to like, you remember that scene in, I don't know which Spider-Man it was, but Tom Holland's Spider-Man, where he rushes in and he's like, got the Lego, and he like drops the Lego. Is it the Death Star or something?
Yeah.
That's almost exactly the same as in the comic with Miles and Gunky. Yeah, and so anyway. So, but yeah, he's pretty much that guy. He's that character, and he's Miles' confidant, in his spider life. And so, Gunky was also the first person to know, let alone see, Miles' powers in the comics too. Like, he quite literally, like, realizes, oh, I can go invisible. What the? And then he runs to Gunky's place, breaks the Lego by accident. Or no, he shows him the shock power, his venom blast.
Yeah.
He like breaks it with the powers. And then, Gunky's like, oh my God, you're a superhero. And then, yeah, that's how it happens. And so in the film, Gunky, voiced by Peter Son in both films, he's had a little role. I think, again, like I said it in the first film too, I feel like they're not giving him as much of, not much screen time because of Ned Leeds, and there would be too many similarities maybe. Yeah. But also the fact that there are like a billion spider people. So
a lot.
Yeah, so it's not like Miles won't have anybody to talk with. But from that, we'll move on to Rio Morales. So while Rio plays a role as impactful in the comics through and through, the comic book version meets an unfortunate fate. So I only had so many screenshots, and this was one of the screenshots I wanted to show you. And so, yeah, once again, this is Miles and getting bit at Uncle Aaron's. Uh-huh. But after a fight with a formidable mutation of venom and its host, Miles has a pretty epic battle in Brooklyn General. So it's the hospital that Rio works in the comics. Mm-hmm. And so Rio comes to Spidey's defense when things aren't looking so great for him. And you have to remember, Venom in this universe, perhaps not Eddie Brock and like not massive in that sense, but like it was like a weird mutate. Yeah. But it was still one person. And so Rio comes to what you think is the rescue. She's got a gun, and she's like, no, you don't like leave Spider-Man alone. She's doing the whole thing. And so the symbiote consumes Miles.
Oh my gosh.
And then she starts to break down, and she's like, please let my son go.
Oh my gosh.
And so you realize then, oh, she's known the whole time. And she's just let him do his thing.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. But as the Venom symbiote like explodes, it quite literally explodes because Miles has blown it up from the inside with his Venom blast. All these, the host, who ends up being Dr. Marcus, who was the first person that Norman Osborn talked to about these spiders. Yeah. He was the guy that was originally doing experiments with the spider that inevitably bit Miles. He was the Venom host. He dies as the police come and they start shooting up the place.
Oh my goodness.
So he dies by police. And then, unfortunately, Rio is caught in the crossfire.
Of course, they're always caught in the crossfire.
It's messed up.
This is my canon event.
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate, all things considered, especially when it comes to real life. But yeah, so Rio gets caught in the crossfire between the police and Venom, and then she's shot and she dies. She dies. And so no less in Miles's arms. So that's like not even his canon event. It's just another event in his life that's horrible.
Being Spider-Man sucks.
It sucks. Exactly. So whether or not she meets the same fate in the films, we don't know yet. Like they could pull a big one on us and be like, okay, because they're leading us down this path of captain. It might not be the captain. It might be Rio.
I feel like it would.
Because in the game it was Jeff, right? It was Jefferson in the game.
It was Miles' dad.
Yeah, he died in like, what was it? I can't remember.
It was an explosion at like a talk at the hall or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and I feel like we as the audience, I feel like we've been connecting more with Rio rather than Jefferson.
Exactly.
He's the goofy dad. He's captain now.
Yeah.
But
especially in the second film.
Exactly. And beyond in Across the Spider-Verse, we're mostly hearing like how Rio is, how she feels about Miles and what she doesn't want to lose. So it could be. Yeah. And then even at the end of when he goes to Earth 42. Yeah. He sees Rio first.
Right, exactly.
Which was an insane ending and editing.
Yeah.
Incredible. I was like, oh my God.
That's when it really felt next level there.
Yeah. So it could be. And I think if Rio did die, I think it would hit harder. A lot harder. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. And so, of course, in the SSMU, voiced by Lauren Velez, I put perhaps one of the most perfectly crafted characters. Because she really is. Just for like, I don't want to say the anti-Aunt May, because she has very many things that are very similar to Aunt May. She's worrisome, but she's also kind of pretty cool, but she's like next level, like awesome, right? She's like the perfect mom in so many ways. I put mom of moms. And so like Aunt May and Uncle Ben before her, she equips Miles with choice words to guide him through his journey. So yeah, like you said, very good points. You really get to know and bond with her in the second film.
And they're Puerto Rican.
Puerto Rican, yeah.
Puerto Rican. Did you notice that little like Easter egg, the snap?
Well, did you see what the animator posted? He posted like he put himself in the scene, but while he was doing the, what do you call it?
The animation?
Yeah, but he like filmed himself doing it so that he'd reference.
Yeah. It was like 3 of him. Yeah.
And he is also Puerto Rican. So, like, he put it in there, and I was like, that's
super cool. The fact you can like do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Oi. So I absolutely love Rio. She's been so consistently great, as has been Jefferson Davis Morales. And so, the funny thing about Jeff in the comics is that he met Rio all thanks to Uncle Aaron. So, a raid occurred while Jeff was accompanying Uncle Aaron and his associate Turk. Do you remember who Turk is?
Ooh, I forget.
So Turk is, if you go back to Daredevil and Defenders, he's that dude that's always dealing guns. And he's like, they always let him go, but he's always like that guy.
Yeah.
So in the comics, Aaron and Turk are always rolling together. They're always doing jobs, doing gigs. And so Jeff went with Aaron on this one particular, night, and Jeff was like, Aaron was like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We're just going to do something real quick. And so a raid happened as they went to go do this real quick thing. And so Jeff like displayed such a skill of getting out of that situation that he caught the eye of Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D., who were part of the sting operation. And so they're like, who is this guy? But he did such a great job that they were like, maybe we could use him. And so Nick more or less propositions him like, hey, would you be willing to kind of like just stick with this guy and learn more about what they're doing and then tell us? And so Jeff cooperates. And so he continues to kind of go into this underbelly of Brooklyn with Aaron, Turk, and then they get wrapped up in Wilson Fisk's world.
Of course.
And so after all is said and done, Jeff is like, after they brought down the Kingpin, after they brought down Wilson Fisk, he's like, okay, I'm good. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then he's in physical therapy, and then he meets Rio, who is a nurse. And so that's how they come together. Yeah. And so from there, that's when he decides, you know what? I do like the whole idea. So I'm going to protect and serve as an actual officer. He then becomes an officer. They get married. They have Miles Morales. Yeah. So that's how it all comes together. And it's all kind of thanks to Uncle Aaron.
There it is.
Who we'll talk about shortly. But yeah, Captain Jefferson Davis, he's not Morales. They don't say Morales in the movie, but he is still, it's a hyphenated name. Let's be honest. Voiced by Brian Tyree Henry. And I just have 2 bullet points. Lovable dad and also The Curse of the Captain. So yeah, the first film, very much dad, and how the two of them get along, and you can tell he's kind of tough love. And then they introduce, like, they kind of want to scare you into submission of, like, the canon event with, oh, the captain dies. Like, the captain dies. I know.
Spider-Man 2099 was like, yeah, he's gonna die.
He's gonna die.
In 2 days.
Yeah.
So,
but I know, and it's interesting because I think what people forget is that I think Gwen even says it. She's like, but how do you know that that's going to be the canon event? Because of course she's asking because she's worried about her own father. Yeah. And so when she goes back to Earth 65, and he's like, I quit. She's like, oh, cool. So that means that there is not going to be another canon event because you're not a captain.
Yeah.
And I think that almost negates the hypotheses that Miguel has put out, because it's like, well,
that's what people are saying on the internet. They're like, why is that? Like, people are thinking that he's being controlled by a higher power, and he's just spewing that out because that's just what's right.
That's just what, yeah. And I think it has potential to be a gigantic red herring, because I if you're looking back at how closely they have actually followed the source material, all signs are pointing to Rio. It's like Captain Davis is almost too easy in a way. Yeah. It makes sense, but it's almost too easy. It's like they're going to bait and switch people who have no idea. Yeah. And be like, just kidding, the mom is going to die. Which is even worse because you love her. Yeah. Like you love, well, not that you don't love them both, but
you there's something about like just her mom aura where you're like, oh man, she's great.
Yeah. And it's also one of those instances and one of those characters that you just don't want him to lose anybody. Yeah. You really don't. And so you just want him to win, but that's the thing that Spider-Man really have in common, is that they always lose something.
In the first Spider-Man PS4 game, when Aunt May died.
Yeah. Which was...
For some reason, I was not seeing that at all. Same. And I was like, oh my God, this sucks.
Yeah, I cried.
I cried too.
I didn't expect that to happen at all.
I was a mess.
And that... Honestly, that twist is what set course for me with Far From Home. I was like, oh no, she's gonna die. Because it's so left field.
I didn't even see.
You don't expect it.
I didn't even see her dying in No Way Home.
I didn't until literally when she got up, and then I was like, oh. And then she stumbled. I was like, oh no, she's dying.
I was like, oh no.
Yeah,
I was like, please,
it's
God.
happening.
Not Marissa Tomei.
I know. Aunt Bay. So I don't know how it'll be. I mean, people know. Some people know already.
Someone's dying.
Someone is definitely dying, though, unfortunately. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I love Jefferson, love Rio. They're so great. And so a quick reminder about Earth 1610. Another one, actually. So in the 2015 version of Secret Wars in the comics, Earth 1610 was destroyed only to be subsequently rebuilt. So this was like This was like the retcon, right? They were like, let's get rid of all the stuff we don't like. And they were like, how do we do that? Let's destroy the Earth.
Yeah.
So they were like, big event, Secret Wars, 2015 edition. And so, after it was rebuilt by, I believe it was Molecule Man, he brings it all back together. The inhabitants, just wait till he shows up. He's going to show up somewhere.
But
Molecule
where's
Man.
Stilt Man?
I know! Come on! I'm waiting! Come on, Sony. So the inhabitants of Earth 1610 were inevitably rewritten into history when they were imported into 616. So nobody goes, wait, Miles Morales? Like, no. It's rewritten as if they were there all along.
Got it.
So they exist there. There's no duplicates. There's none of that. They're the only ones. They were like, bloop, bloop.
Rebuilt. Okay.
Rebuilt, yeah. And so that allowed Miles to have his family and friends in that universe despite the original demise. Whether or not that includes like the doubles like Gwen Stacy, Kate Bishop, I don't know. But they just never appear again. So I'm assuming not. But everybody else, the Gunky and the mom, yeah, they're all there. And so all the keywords hit in that story arc. You heard Battle World, you heard about incursions, all of that.
Man.
It's all in there. So it gave creators the ability to scrap simply what did not work and keep what did. So all of these keywords, they're starting to drop into the MCU and introduce us into the bigger picture. So don't be surprised if by Beyond the Spider-Verse you're like, I got that reference, because it's gonna happen. And so, I don't know. Did you want to talk about the rest of the friends in the SSMU and when it comes to Peter B. Parker or Penny or Peter Porker or Peter Parker or?
I think I am falling for Gwen Stacy. But that's also very biased because of Haley Steinfeld.
Because it's Haley Steinfeld, yeah.
But I feel like
great character, right?
Even I was talking to Sam's brother and his wife. We were talking about Spider-Verse, right? And we were talking about the album. So I was listening to the album way before, even just before I saw the movie.
Yeah, you said it. You had it on repeat.
I still do. And I was like, oh, these are such good songs. And then I saw it in context in the movie, and it's 10 times better.
Yeah, that's more or less why I wait. To be honest.
So Gwen's song that's played during her, I think, but there's a montage of her and the Coi Leray song, the self-love song was playing, and it just made so much sense for her. And I was like, this is great. And at the end of that song on the album, it's her line of, in every universe, Gwen Stacy falls for Spider-Man. And I say it in the exactly like, and in every universe, it doesn't end well. And I'm like, bro, my heart.
And then speaking of, I didn't dive into it because I do want to be mostly surprised, even though I know it's probably impossible at this point.
Yeah.
But evidently in Beyond the Spider-Verse, we're going to see even more Gwen Stacy's. Like, we're going to see variants of her. So I was like, oh my God.
Saw that, yeah.
So I'm like bracing myself. Are they going to actually do the proper 616 death off the bridge, Green Goblin, Spider-Man snapping her neck ordeal? Because that's the only way they're going to get away with it.
Another snap, baby.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
The worst one. But I mean, like, that's the thing. That's funny, right? Because Gwen is a little more complicated because she's not only Spider-Man, quote unquote Spider-Man.
Yeah.
She's also Gwen Stacy.
Yes.
So she has all the complexities and bad luck that Peter Parker usually has.
Yeah.
But the added value of like, Gwen Stacy ain't the luckiest gal in the galaxy either. So like her point is that, like she always falls for Spider-Man. Sometimes literally. But it never, ever, ever goes well. It never ends up in their favor. And that's just simply the way that things go for them.
Yeah. So I'm like loving Gwen Stacy and like her background. I love Peter B. Parker.
I love him
like
so
the whole
much.
Mayday thing. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And like, and then that little backstory where he like trapped Miles in that boiler room or whatever.
Yeah.
And he was like, you're the reason she's like, you're the reason she's alive.
Yeah.
You're the reason I have her.
So
and I was
good.
like, damn.
Yeah.
But then you start like thinking about stuff and you're like, okay, well, what's his canon event? Or, well, you know, like, did Miles Morales really change the Spider-Verse?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
yes, he did.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love Jake Johnson, for the record. Like,
Jake Johnson is amazing.
If there's ever a live action Peter B. Parker, I want Jake Johnson to play him. I want that to happen. And I had this moment, like, we'll get into it later, but I had this moment of like, yo, what if all of the voice actors played the live action version in Beyond the Spider-Verse?
Like
just for a hot, like, just a scene.
Yeah.
Like, what if there's a scene that they show all the variants and they're all their variants? I would trip. I would, like, especially for Jake Johnson and Haley.
Even Andy Samberg as Ben Reilly.
Yeah.
That was hilarious. He's like, I'm here. Oh,
Perfect pose.
Perfect pose. There's something in the alley. I better check it out.
So good.
There's an anomaly, but the walls are the same. And I was like, oh my God.
Well, that's how, I mean, like, this is obviously a discussion of like the animation styles and the treatments and all that proprietary stuff that Sony so magnificently created. But like, the funny thing about that is, even though it's complete satire, it's like a mockery of like 90s niche Spider-Man comics. It fits perfectly.
Oh,
you can't be
amazing.
mad at it because that's exactly what it is. He's always like super ripped muscles and like, it's accentuated, and he's always looking like dramatically.
I'm going through it. I'm going through a moment.
Yeah, what it was, he's like, I'm remembering all the depressing moments in my life or something like that. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And that's how it is. Like,
It's
that's just how it is. But in the comics, they took it very seriously. Yeah. And it's just like, I call it the Todd McFarlane era. Because
that's fair.
That's what it was like.
Before we move on, I also love Spider-Punk.
Dude, Hobie, I put it back up. So there's in his first origin story.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I have an original page from his origin story.
Like, I didn't know what I was going to expect of him, especially his first entrance. And I was like, oh, like,
I know,
Glenn visited him.
I kept telling people, I was like, you're going to love Spider-Punk. Wait, and this was before the movie came out, right?
Yeah.
I was just like, I knew that he was in it, and I was like, everyone's going to love him. I know it.
Yeah. And then, and he's like, oh, Gwen, you left your jumper here at my place. What's a jumper? are those my Chucks? And I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh, there's tension. There's tension. But then you start to realize, like, he's the only one.
Yeah.
That was willing to help Miles.
Yeah.
And everyone on the internet caught that. They were just like, oh my God, like he's the real MVP.
One. Yeah.
He's, oh my God, his lines were
it's so good.
Hilarious.
And you have to like, he's so quick because he's got a Cockney accent, right? So he's very quick-witted, very, very, like, if you don't, and that's where the sound thing comes into play. Like, if you don't have that great sound in the theater, you're gonna miss what he's saying.
Yeah.
And so it is kind of unfortunate for people who saw it once and they just had the really low volume because he says stuff. You're just like, especially when they're walking through that scene to go see Miguel. And he's pocketing all the stuff, like Baby Rocket, like he's pulling all that stuff, putting it in his pocket, and he's just like, oh yeah, man, you know, you gotta take things into your own hands, you know, and then the palm thing. And you almost get the vibe that, like, clearly they pit them against each other because there's a girl involved, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, no, that's just your own perception. Like, Hobie is really reaching out to him, being like, oh no, you know, next time you do that shock thing, you gotta use your whole palm.
Use your palms, mate.
And he was just like, what?
Yeah.
And then, you know, he's so distracted, and so they're also expecting the audience to be distracted by the fact that, wait, Gwen? And him? And wait, what? Oh, toothbrush? Like, they're throwing all these things at you so that you're just like, you don't know what to focus on.
Yeah.
But yeah, he comes out like an MVP.
I hate the AM, I hate the PM. I'm not a hero. I'm not a hero. Some thoughts of fascist. He's like, how are we? Oh, and then the album, he's like, how are you cooler even under the mask? He's like, and then he's like, I was cool this whole time. And I was like, it's so sick.
And then Daniel Kaluuya. I love it. I love everything about it. Yeah. So that's the cool thing that they did adapt from the origin story as well. Or not, maybe was it the origin story? But it was one of the issues when they were introducing Hobie. And I think it was the origin story. And so you go, like, you've bonded with this character very quickly because he's so cool. Yeah. So cool. And so even in the comics, the minute he unmasks himself, you're like, oh, damn, crazy. You're even cooler. Like it's just nothing you expect, you know?
And then, fun fact about his animation style too in the in the movie, which
Yeah.
is insane. You know,
Oh,
it's
I
like
love
the
it.
it's like the ripped paper type stuff, like
super
kind of like protest,
clash.
like all that stuff.
100%.
I
Yeah.
think I was reading or watching something. So I think when you do animation, it's mostly edited. Frames are animated on 1s and 2s.
Yeah.
Right. I think Spider-Punk was animated on 3s.
Oh.
So every 3 frames there was a new pose. That's why he sticks out and is so different.
Yeah,
from all the
you
others.
could tell, right?
Yeah.
He had like a certain tick to him that wasn't as smooth, but the jarring factor of him was just so cool.
So cool.
Yeah, I just
I need to watch it again.
I know, I want to see everything that's just animation cycles.
No, I want to see
and
it.
stuff.
It's an IMAX, right?
Yes.
I want to see it in IMAX.
Oh, you didn't see it in IMAX?
I just saw it. I was like, I
really?
just need to see it. I need to watch this movie.
Yeah, I refuse to see it in anything but IMAX because I know, because even from the first one, I was like, the first time I saw the first one was at Sony, so it was like a small theater, but the very, very first official time, I was like, I want IMAX. I want to make sure I'm in the middle. I want all these things. And so it's the best way to experience it at its full potential, especially these films. Like, people are always like, oh yeah, see it in IMAX. And it's like, no, this one, you really gotta see in IMAX. And so, I know, before we talk about Hobie, his name is Hobart, by the way. So if we talk about Hobie, more, I do want to say that because, again, like many of these spiders, we can actually talk about them in their own episodes. But we can move on to notable adversaries. And so, much like the rest of our other spider people, Miles encounters many familiar adversaries to that of Prime Earth's Peter Parker. So, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. There's a lot. So we're just going to stick to the ones, we're more familiar with thanks to the films.
Yeah.
So very quickly, Wilson Fisk, Kingpin. And so, in the comics, he's predominantly a Peter Parker foe, in 1610. And Fisk and Miles only cross paths, or may have not crossed paths at all if not had been for Jefferson. So the Jefferson factor that we talked about earlier is more or less what really intersects them. And so that's more or less all they have in common. They don't have the same collision that they do like in Into the Spider-Verse. Which, of course, voiced by Liev Schreiber in the first film. Yeah, so again, he's larger than life, super collider, shoulder touch. Hey. He's based off of, an iconic Bill Sienkiewicz piece of artwork from the comics. He's definitely got more against him in the films than in the comics. So, who has a lot more, though? Frank! AKA Spot. So in the comics, on Earth's 1610, a man simply known as Frank was subjected to experiments being conducted by Roxxon Industries. Yeah, ultimately mutating his form and allowing him to produce and manipulate black wormholes of antimatter.
It's kind of insane.
If you think about it, it's just in this black hole, wormholes for days, right? Like, it's funny at first, but then you think about it and you're like, oh.
Like, how do you stop that?
Yeah. I think he says it in the movie. He's like, it's like the multiverse in the palm of my hand. Literally, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, fun fact about Spot, his Earth 616 counterpart, was named Dr. Jonathan On. He attended MIT and was college roommates with Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio.
Mysterio.
Yeah, so while Spot doesn't have too much with Miles aside, I think they had one battle and it was like one issue. Like, that's it. He's definitely got a significant play on Miles in the film.
Oh, yeah.
So much that he's crossing over into another film. He's only known as Spot. We don't know his real alias name. I feel like it might have been in The Office, but I couldn't catch it. His real name.
Maybe.
Yeah. So of course, voiced by Jason Schwartzman.
Hilarious.
It's funny because like right off the bat, I was like, it's either Ben Schwartz or Jason Schwartzman. I didn't know which one it was. And I was like, I think it's Jason. I'm not sure. So, yes, of course, voiced by Jason. Again, the bagel guy.
He took a bagel!
And, he worked at Alchemax, under Wilson Fisk, so they're tying it all together. Yeah, and basically, like, all of the Spider-Man villains, like Electro, they just, something bad happens to them on the job, and they're like, Spider-Man!
They just have to blame Spider-Man.
Yeah, and they gotta blame somebody, and it's gonna be Spider-Man.
Like, you were there when my family died.
Yeah.
And now I'm gonna kill yours.
It's so messed up.
Jeez, man.
Yeah. Oof. Villain origin story. So yeah, gosh, what else can we say about the I was gonna call him the bagel guy, the Spot.
I mean, at first it was kind of silly, like his first introduction.
I 100% thought he was gonna be a throwaway.
I was like,
100%.
He was like, "Don't mind me, I'm just gonna steal this ATM machine."
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, then had that fight. I'm like, okay, like he tied
like, where's your ATM machine? It isn't chained to the floor, is it? Because I'm gonna rob you. What? Nothing. I didn't see anything. Yeah.
And then got into that fight, worked out, and then he started to realize his true potential, and it was like, okay,
yeah,
this man is traveling.
Mm-hmm.
That's not cool.
The fact that he kicked himself into himself is kind of hilarious.
It's hilarious. That is funny.
And that was kind of more or less his secondary canon event.
Yeah.
Because that's how he figured out.
He's like,
oh. Yeah.
The power of the multiverse. In the palm of my hand.
That's something super villains say.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we've yet to see the full breadth of like what he's gonna do.
I think that would be a hard villain to do live action.
Yeah. I mean, it would just be kind of silly. It would be like actually silly.
It would look silly.
Yeah.
It would feel kind of silly. I'm not saying it's not doable, but I just feel like it works obviously way better in animation.
Sure, 100%.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe you won't get this because you don't watch Evangelion, but there's so many treatments with the Spot, just like even just the way that they animated certain scenes that are right out of Evangelion, which of course is a Japanese anime, like a classic Japanese anime at this point, like turn of the 2000s.
Okay.
And like his floaty, like scary floaty thing, like it's straight out of the, like, and it's just as like,
it's scary.
It's scary.
Yeah.
It's like legitimately scary. It borders like Japanese horror in a weird way, right?
Yeah.
It's this white, ominous thing floating and he's saying scary things but yet the voice is still like, he's not like Wilson Fisk, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and now I'm gonna kill yours. Yeah. And it's like that jarring, like, reverberation.
You're like, all right. That's cool, dude.
Yeah. So yeah, we haven't yet even, I don't think we've even seen the worst of it with him. But whether or not he's the final, or if he's like the baddie at the beginning of the first half of the film, and then it's who we're gonna talk about next. Yeah, exactly. Like, we don't know yet. So we'll see. So speaking of that, wanted to talk about Uncle Aaron very quickly. So good old bad Uncle Aaron. In the comics, again, hired by Roxxon. So like I mentioned, once all of the news about Norman Osborn conducting experiments and being the Green Goblin got out,
yeah,
all of his competition wanted to hone in and steal the tech, steal the experiments.
Of course.
And so Roxxon hired Uncle Aaron to go in to steal their stuff. And so while he was ransacking, that's when the spider got into the backpack. He didn't take it. It got in there. Mm-hmm. And so, the rest of that story. And so, yeah, he's pretty consistent. I don't remember about the Prowler stuff. I probably should look it up. Cause he was, I believe Hobart Brown in another universe is the Prowler.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, now I gotta look that up. Hobart Brown. So yeah, whereas Uncle Aaron is Uncle Aaron in the comics.
Yes.
1610, Hobie Brown of 616 is actually the Prowler.
Oh, wow.
So, that's what I remember. That's why, all the Spider-Verse stuff is coming back to me. So that's what makes Spider-Punk so brilliant too, because I believe Dan even clarified on Twitter that originally Spider-Punk was supposed to be a rendition of Spider UK, which is also a version of Captain Carter. All of those are all connected, right? So it's almost like they flow into each other. So Hobie Brown of his Earth was supposed to be the Prowler, but they changed him into Spider-Punk, blah, 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 blah. I'm going down a big rabbit hole. But anyway, so that's as far as Uncle Aaron goes. So in the film, yeah, they've made him into the Prowler, much like the video game. And of course, voiced by Mahershala Ali. This is like, I'm going to do this again. So, in the SSMU, Aaron Davis, the Prowler, voiced by Mahershala Ali, and portrayed by Donald Glover.
That's insane.
Like, Donald Glover really does have some deep roots in this character, like in Miles.
Crazy.
Yeah, because he's part of so many aspects of him. And yeah, like again, like that whole thing with him in Homecoming, like him referring to Miles. Did you ever see that deleted clip?
Yes.
Yeah, and he's like, "Hey, Miles, I'm going to be late."
Yeah.
And it's because he's stuck to the car.
Yeah.
And I remember like that, and I was like, "What?"
They're just throwing Easter eggs in there, man.
But then that also means that there is a Miles Morales in the Earth 199999999. So that's pretty cool. But in the film, Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, they don't explicitly say what crimes Aaron specializes in, but he's noted as an assassin and a mercenary, a step up from being just a burglar like he was in the comics. And so it is by this proxy that we're then introduced to Miles Morales. I love that was the differentiating like factor of when Miles meets himself in Earth 42, is that Miles Morales not only has braids, but he even says it with the accent.
Yeah, he kept his
the
Spanish accent.
Yeah, so you could tell he's already better at Spanish because he says Morales.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
here we go.
Yeah. So that said, I have a quick pop quiz for you. The one and only.
Great. The
one and only, I promise.
Great.
So, this is a fun one. You should be able to know that. You should know this one. Can you name the other Marvel crossover roles that Brian, Donald, Leave, and Mahershala have all been?
What the hell? What?
They've all been different people in the Marvel Universe. Can you name them all?
Okay, Brian Tyree Henry.
Brian Tyree Henry. Who is he playing?
He plays, he's in, Eternals.
Yes.
What's his name?
Yeah.
What is his name? I forget his name, but they're in Eternals.
But, okay, you did well because he was Fastos.
Fastos!
Yeah.
And then the next one was... Donald Glover.
Donald Glover, yeah.
Okay, he plays Aaron Davis in Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yep.
Lee Schreiber, you can't get me. He's in X-Men Origins.
Yeah. You love that movie. You secretly love that movie.
It's one of those movies where you love to hate it.
Did you end up watching Dark Phoenix, by the way?
Of course I did. Of course. That's
You
another
love
story.
pain.
That's another story to
Yeah,
tell.
that's another story for another day.
So he plays Sabretooth?
Yes!
Woo!
Well done.
And then Mahershala Ali
Yeah.
has not made his on-screen appearance yet, or he hold on. This is a trick question.
It's a trick question.
God, I was like,
Think back.
he's Blade,
Come on,
right?
come on, man. Come on. You're right there.
Mahershala in the MCU or just Marvel comic
Marvel
movie?
comic movies and stuff.
Oh,
Come on.
my
man.
gosh.
You got this. You got this.
Oh my gosh.
Make it a clear 100, not 99. Let's go.
What? No, wait. Sorry, guys. We're gonna sit on this. We're gonna go through every single Marvel movie since 2000. I'm just kidding. Mahershala Ali. Okay. Was it after 2012 or before 2012?
After.
Interesting. Because then I should know this. Mahershala Ali was in what live action Marvel movie?
Are you serious?
I'm blank. There's a lot of characters.
Oh, you're gonna kick yourself.
I know. Go ahead.
Okay. Hint.